Welcome to Go Solo Live.
Don't you mean go solo live? Have you ever been asked, why on earth would you travel alone? Go Solo Live not only answers that question, but celebrates life as a midlife solo traveler. This is a safe place for women to come together to reminisce about their travels, encourage others to travel, and to dig into the real lessons learned from these journeys. Now join Jennifer Buchholz with Transform Via Travel as she and her guests share stories of the solo travelers of midlife women.
Welcome to Go Solo Live. This is Jennifer with Transform Via Travel. We are in our special season of our podcast, and now I'd like to introduce Dr. Mary Travel Best.
Welcome to Dr. Mary Travel Best's Independent Travel Guide. This is for women who travel, who want to travel, and especially for those who want to travel independently. What's on your bucket list? You can tell me your dreams, your wishes, and your travel fantasies of where you want to travel, and I'll help you get there. I'm going to respond to your travel questions, as well as share my mistakes and missteps in travel, because I've made just about every mistake. You don't have to. I wrote and published the best-selling and famous book, CD, and website, The World's First Guide to Independent Travel, and since 1993, I've been running a marketing business, raising 4 children with my husband, and been a university professor while traveling. My travel experiences are helpful to others like you, so I want to share them so you make your trip the very best, like travel best. In this episode, we'll talk about your questions, your independent destination. This time it's China, my mistake, and some travel advice. So to begin with, the FAQ. Can you name some independent travelers who inspire you, Dr. Travel Best? Yes, I can, and I'd love to call out several people. And today, I want to call out my friend Cindy. She is setting out on a long trip today. She'll be gone for a year, at least, she says. And this recognition that I want to call her out is just because we've had so many years of friendship and great times together. And Cindy retired a couple of years ago. She's got that travel bug. She has been doing a lot of traveling, and I've been doing some with her. She's going to make this happen while she's still able to and willing to go places. And that's why I want to help inspire you with her spirit of travel. So Cindy's planning a trip that includes many countries, many cities, and many outstanding adventures. She knows that she can go to the EU. She explained this all to me because she's done all her homework. She can go for up to 120 days out of a year. So she's going there, leaving strategically the northern countries during the cooler months. She loves hot weather, so she's planning accordingly. So if you love hot weather, like Cindy, you will also want to visit the northern countries, if you're going to Europe, before the winter kicks in. I don't know when I'm going to see Cindy next, but she's going to be inspiring me to travel more and to do my best at it. So that's somebody who I just can't wait to hear from. She's renting her house out to a friend, and she's on the road, and I'm just so excited for her. Today's independent destination is China. China is a wonderful place and so big, so big. 30 years ago, I did travel there alone, and I was inspired by my mother, who had gone there before me. She went in 1985. I went in 1988. And just to give you a little perspective of the time that I went, it was about 6 months before the Tiananmen Square problems. So that will kind of give you a feel for how early in the journey this was and how early my mom's journey was. My trip, again, in 1988 included a visit to Hong Kong and to Beijing and to Shanghai and even to Taiwan. And I made maybe 6 stops in Hong Kong airport because that was the meeting ground for most of these trips. And again, I was all alone. And I can't wait to share some of the stories with you today about that. I also went back in 2017 and I was a professor in Guangzhou and also stopped in Shanghai and visited my daughter who was living there. So I had a chance to see it in the 1980s and again in the 2000 teens. Beijing before Tiananmen Square was, I want to say, stark. It had that khaki color of everything. And I was able to see the square before there were protests. And it was just one really, really large square. I had a room that overlooked the neighborhood, not too far away. And I was able to really get some insights that I don't think too many people at the time did. I was able to go to the Great Wall. I was able to go see the pandas in Beijing. Now, interestingly, there was nobody at the panda exhibit. I was the only one at the exhibit when I went to the zoo. At that time, the pandas had just come to the San Diego Zoo, and their lines to see those pandas were 4 hours. So it was kind of strange for me to see nobody looking at the pandas in Beijing. It wasn't a big tourist attraction there, as it was where I live in San Diego. The Great Wall was outstanding, just immense, and one of the highlights of my life, I think. The Hall of the People was also a real special adventure. I got to go behind the scenes. I befriended a tour guide, and he showed me all of the riches that were on display, not on a regular tour, but this was just a one-on-one event to see all of the goods that had been given to the emperors of China for centuries. And again, this was on kind of a private display, but it was something to really remember, just fortune in gifts that had been given. Hong Kong was a beautiful metropolis of commerce. If you haven't been to Hong Kong, this was before it was turned over to China. So I know it's changed a bit since, but Hong Kong is really very English speaking, very easy to get around. The subways were really easy to ride. I was able to get everywhere I wanted to go to. So if you're going to China, at least in my experience, Hong Kong was a really good entry point. So once I got familiar with Hong Kong, then I felt really comfortable to go to Beijing and after that to Shanghai. And so I want to recommend that you take your China independent destination in that order. Start out, if you can, in the most comfortable cultural situation that you can, and I think would be Hong Kong, and then proceed from there. I also want to talk about Shanghai because what an experience that was. First of all, the city was a commerce capital, but in China. And capitalism was still very new back in the late 80s. When I went again 30 years later, it was full blown. It was full blown, and the city reminded me of New York. It was just that built up and that many skyscrapers and that many people. And I grew up in New York, outside the city, but it did give me so much of a feel for being in New York, even though I was in China. And my daughter had been living there by this time about a year. So she was able to show me some of the behind the scenes parts of Shanghai too. So all in all, I have spent, several weeks in China. And one of the things I also did, I mentioned, is I was a professor at a university in southern China in a place called Guangzhou. And so I had a chance to be the only American out of 20,000 people for a week at this university called Sun Yat-sen University, or Nanfang College at Sun Yat-sen University. And I was teaching mobile marketing to the students in English because that was the language that they studied in. It was a great experience. So that kind of wraps up my independent destination for today. I want to move on and talk about today's mistake. Dr. Mary Travel Best wants to help you be safe. And my advice is the last run of the day, if you're skiing, never take the last run. Always say in your mind, you've got one more run. So you will save up some of your energy. Here's exactly what my mistake was. I took the last run and I was at Copper Mountain in Colorado. My friends were all better skiers than me. So they all went for the double blacks and I took the easier way down. But because I was in a hurry to catch up, I took a really bad fall and I ended up snapping my knee. And it was very painful and I was unable to ski all the way down. So I had to call for the ski patrol and they put me in the sled and had to take me all the way down the mountain because I was all the way at the top. So my mistake was the last run of the day. Don't take it. Just in your mind, say there's always going to be one more run. the consequences are that I really don't have an ACL, or if I do, it looks a little bit like spaghetti. So I hope that you don't have that same problem. So some travel advice for you. Take the subway, if at all possible. If you're in a large city, you're going to get to your destination faster, and you will have a chance to get to know the people who are on the subway with you. You're going to get a feel for the culture, the styles, the conversations, and it should be a pretty easy way for you to get around. Now, you do want to travel light when you're on the subway. Try to keep your baggage to a minimum. And if you do this outside of rush hours, at least your first few times, that's what I'd recommend. I've been on subways independently in so many cities. I started to make a list of them. New York City, London, Chicago, Barcelona, Paris, Shanghai, Taipei, Bangkok, San Francisco. There were so many others, I can't even remember them all. But the advice here is get to where you want to go while you're underground. Then you will have a chance to reap some of the rewards from under the city as well as above the city. So many people who travel on tours only go on a bus, and I don't see that as the ultimate experience. I want to bring meaning to your travel. So take the subway. Thanks for sharing this edition of the world's first guide to independent travel with Dr. Mary Travel Best with your girlfriends. If you want to know more, just search for Dr. Mary Travel Best, and you'll find me on the web, social media, and in audio formats all over. So I want to help women travel best. That's my goal. Please send me your travel questions so I can help you and help others too. I'm looking for you to travel best, so go ahead and let me know what's on your bucket list.